From the kitchen of the cabin, it's the 5 Games for Doomsday review. The mind. Why do we do this thing? Why do we come together around tables and move pieces to get points? Why do we travel across countries or continents to get together and talk about moving pieces to get points? Why do we spend so much time thinking about buying and playing these things? These games? It seems to me that the reasons can be demarcated in 2 ways. I'm going to call these 2 reasons on the table and above the table. Below the table is better left to those who indulge in the more sloppy forms of human recreation than me. On the table, you have the games themselves, the intrinsic joy of fitting together these separate mechanisms and coaxing patterns and tactics and strategies out of formerly dead cardboard. The act of playing games is assuming the role of God and bringing these things to life. Before we play them, these games just lie on the table, cadavers. But when we move the pieces and juggle the puzzles in our head, the games shudder into life. Every time we sit down to play, we create life where there was formerly none. We take the iterated ideas of the designer and we put them to the test. We push them and pull them and try to bend them to our desire. But in the end, that's all they are. Ideas manifest in cardboard, plastic, and wood. And that is their miracle. This is the on-the-table joy of playing games, pulling on a thread and seeing if it leads somewhere. The other people around the table just bags of meat that help us fulfill that end. You, locked in competition with the system of the game. No other goal than to crack that system and to use it to release endorphins every time you have a turn. Then there is sitting in a room and laughing and crying and screaming and accusing, with the game being the facilitator of that experience. The game not as mechanisms and puzzles to solve, but as a way to foster experience, like a cardboard version of a car key party, but with less awkwardness and repressed middle-class recrimination. These games take simple core concepts, the withholding of information, a restriction on a type of communication, and use them to build memories. Then they let skills that have been honed since the cradle take over, and rather than use a mechanism, they use simple human interaction to carry the burden of play. The mind is a game that has planted its flag in a second camp and planted it hard. The rules of this game seem almost mocking in their simplicity, but it's the understanding of the way people react to each other that makes players of the mind think they're performing magic. Players are dealt a number of cards that correspond to the number of the round. 1 card in the first round, 2 in the second, and so on. The goal is to play these cards in ascending order until all players have played all of their cards, with the rather large caveat that there is to be no communication whatsoever, apart from looking into each other's eyes and intuiting when to play. Players have to complete a number of rounds to win the game depending on player count. Help is offered in the form of a limited number of throwing stars, which players can utilise to discard their lowest card if there is a unanimous agreement around the table. You play until you've completed the required number of rounds, or, by playing cards out of sequence, your final life is lost. Explaining why the mind is so captivating is like trying to carve smoke. The mind is a game that exists in the intangible, in stabs of feeling and joyful tension. It's like trying to explain the effect music has, or the burst in the stomach when a long-forgotten smell brushes past your smell receptors. But as I'm being paid to explain these kinds of things, I'll give it a go. The mind is pure cooperation with the extraneous bits lopped off. The mind is so wonderful because it lives solely above the table and taps into powers of communication that we use every day without knowing it. And better than that, it makes us conscious of them. The mind is at its best when you don't cheat. This is a game in which it's very easy to cheat, a sly gesture here, a blink of the eyes there, and all groups are entitled to operate as they wish because winning isn't really the goal. But when you simply do as the rules tell you, you could be forgiven for thinking you're performing magic. It goes like this. A group sits down to play the game and they fail abysmally. They play again, change nothing, and find they get better. Then again and again until they start to function as one mind, playing card after card seemingly automatically. This is because the mind makes us use skills that have nothing to do with the circumstance of the game. These are abilities that have been honed for us over millions of years of evolution. The reading of micro-expressions and small, almost imperceptible changes in posture. The instinctive understanding by reading the dilation of a pupil, whether a person is calm or concerned. We do this without knowing we're doing it, and without any woo-woo whatsoever, we become seemingly telepathic. The mind is also uproariously fun. Games are punctuated with screams, sharp intakes of breath, and cheers. The mind does what so many other games profess to do. It brings people together, and it allows them to marvel at the sorcery that can be woven from a few cards and a communal will to succeed. The mind lives above the table. The mind lives within our minds, and proves to us that if we work together, we truly can create magic. This review was made possible by the support of my patrons on patreon.com/5G4D. If you'd like to support the show and make more pieces like this possible, go there and support. Every little helps.